My name is David. I am exactly 50 years old. I woke up this morning before the sun even thought about rising, stepped out into my freezing garage and gripped the cold, rough knurling of a heavy iron barbell. I pulled it off the floor without a single ache in my lower back. My muscles felt dense, full, and completely alive. I refuse to accept less than my absolute best potential in this life. But I have a very serious confession to make to you today. Just a few short years ago, I was absolutely terrified. I was looking in the mirror every morning and watching my shoulders physically shrink. My favorite shirts were hanging off my body like hand-me-downs. I felt this creeping, undeniable weakness settling deep into my bones, a silent thief stealing my hard-earned physical strength. I was literally losing my grip on my life. If you are also tired of watching your muscles disappear as you get older and want to learn how I completely rebuilt my body using 3 simple foods sitting right inside my refrigerator, hit the subscribe button and leave a like. Let us get stronger together. You see, I always believed in the classic American dream of health. I thought that if you just work hard, stay active and push through the pain, your body will automatically take care of you. I used to be the guy who could chop firewood all afternoon, rebuild the engine on my truck, and still have plenty of energy to throw a football around the yard. But then, something dark and heavy shifted inside me. I remember the exact moment it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was standing out in the backyard, trying to pull the starter cord on my old, stubborn lawnmower. I yanked it once. Nothing happened. I yanked it twice, and my forearm started burning intensely. By the third pull, my grip completely gave out. I had to sit down on the concrete patio steps, completely out of breath, shaking and deeply embarrassed. I stared down at my hands. They looked so much thinner than I remembered. My forearms lacked that thick, ropey muscle I was so used to seeing. I felt a deep, heavy shame wash over my entire body. Was this really it? Was this the inevitable, miserable decline that everyone always talks about? I started doing my own intense digging. I spent late nights sitting alone at my kitchen table, drinking black coffee and scrolling through complex medical journals and research papers under the harsh overhead light. I learned a medical word that truly terrified me: sarcopenia. It is the silent, progressive loss of muscle mass that starts hitting us incredibly hard as we cross into our 50s and 60s. It is not just about looking good in a tight t-shirt at the beach. It is about your fundamental independence. It is about whether you can stand up from a deep living room chair without groaning, or carry your own heavy groceries from the car without needing to take a break. I flatly refused to accept that reality as my future. I decided right then and there that I would fight back with everything I had left in the tank. But I quickly realized that simply spending long, brutal hours in the gym was not enough anymore. My body was just not recovering. My joints constantly ached, and my muscles felt flat, empty, and exhausted. The engine was willing to run, but the fuel I was giving it was entirely wrong. Honestly, cheese always got a very bad reputation in my house growing up. I was raised thinking it was just greasy, fatty, and something you only ate when you wanted to completely ruin your diet. I thought of it as a rare indulgence, a guilty pleasure loaded with cheap sodium that would eventually clog my arteries and slow me down. But let me explain what I uncovered in my late-night research sessions. I stumbled across fascinating studies from brilliant doctors and longevity researchers who were quietly recommending certain natural, aged foods for serious muscle repair. I found out that the ultimate secret to fighting sarcopenia might just be sitting right in my own fridge, quietly wrapped in simple wax paper, just waiting to surprise me. I decided to make myself a human guinea pig. I threw out all the processed junk in my pantry and focused entirely on 3 specific, incredibly powerful cheeses. I am not talking about those individually wrapped, shiny, plastic, artificial slices. I am talking about real, nutrient-dense muscle repair tools. When I started eating them strategically, the changes I physically saw in the mirror and felt in the gym were absolutely mind-blowing. Let me break down exactly what happened when I introduced the very first one into my diet. Cottage cheese. I know exactly what you might be thinking right now. Cottage cheese probably reminds you of those terrible, bland, depressing diet plates from the 1980s. I hated the stuff for decades. The lumpy texture used to make me gag, but I was totally desperate to rebuild my shoulders and arms, so I bought a large tub at the grocery store. The research I read showed that just half a cup of simple, low-fat cottage cheese delivered 14 massive grams of high-quality protein for only 81 calories. Almost 70% of those calories were pure, unadulterated protein. I compared that directly to the regular greasy cheddar I used to snack on while watching sports, and I immediately saw why cottage cheese was in a completely different, superior league of its own. But it was not just the raw protein numbers that changed my physical body. I learned about a crucial amino acid called leucine. Think of leucine as the heavy-duty ignition key that finally starts the massive engine of a diesel truck. As we age, our muscles get incredibly stubborn. They absolutely do not want to grow anymore. They need a massive, concentrated dose of leucine just to get the biological message that it is time to build new tissue. I found out that older guys like me need about 3 full grams of leucine at every single meal just to trigger real muscle growth. That simple half cup of cottage cheese gave me over a full gram right out of the gate. I remember my first week trying to eat it. I was deeply worried it would upset my stomach. But to my complete surprise, it was soft, creamy, and incredibly gentle on my fragile digestive system. I felt absolutely no bloating at all. The real magic, however, happened late at night. Cottage cheese is packed with a special slow-release protein called casein. I started eating a small bowl about an hour before I went to sleep. Normally, when you sleep for 8 hours, your body fasts and starts rapidly breaking down your hard-earned muscle for fuel. But with that thick casein in my system, I felt like I had a time-release muscle protector standing guard all night long. I would wake up the next morning feeling totally full, my muscles feeling hard and dense instead of flat and depleted. I got very creative with it in the kitchen. I could not just eat it plain every day. I started mixing it with fresh, dark blackberries and a thick drizzle of raw local honey every single morning. The natural, rich sweetness cut right through the tanginess. Some days, when I wanted a sharp, savory kick, I chopped up fresh red tomatoes from my backyard garden, tossed in some crisp cucumbers, and sprinkled heavy black pepper and fresh dill over the top. I even started tossing it directly into the blender with some frozen fruit and a scoop of protein powder. When you blend it on high, the lumpy texture completely disappears. You honestly do not even taste the cheese at all, but you absolutely feel the incredible, deep recovery benefits the next day when you hit the heavy weights. I noticed my arms feeling tighter almost immediately. My work shirts were fitting just a little bit more snug around the upper chest. I was actively rebuilding my foundation. But cottage cheese was only the beginning of my physical transformation. The second powerhouse I brought into my kitchen routine was a complete shock to my system. Parmesan cheese, and I mean the real, authentic stuff, Parmigiano Reggiano. For my entire adult life, I just thought of Parmesan as that cheap, salty dust that came out of a green plastic shaker at the pizza parlor. I was completely wrong. I drove out to a local high-end market and bought a solid, hard wedge of authentic Parmesan. It had those distinctive, stamped little dots all around the thick, golden rind. The very first time I cut a small piece off, about the size of my thumb, and ate it, the intense flavor literally exploded in my mouth. It was sharp, rich, salty, and intensely savory. But more importantly, that tiny 1-ounce chunk delivered over 10 solid grams of complete protein. It is one of the absolute most concentrated sources of protein you can possibly find anywhere on Earth. You know what surprised me the most about it? How incredibly well my stomach handled it. As I have gotten older, my digestion is certainly not the iron furnace it used to be in my 20s. Heavy, dense, protein-rich meals used to leave me feeling sluggish, tired, and heavily bloated. I would have to sit on the couch for an hour just to digest my dinner. But this real Parmesan is naturally aged for at least 24 long months. During that slow, careful aging process, The natural enzymes inside the cheese actually break down the complex proteins into much smaller, highly digestible fragments. It is practically pre-digested for you. I felt absolutely zero discomfort after eating it. Plus, because of that extreme aging process, it contains virtually zero lactose. I started grating it fresh over my hot scrambled eggs every single morning. The smell of the melting, aged cheese hitting the hot cast-iron skillet was simply intoxicating. That simple, rustic breakfast alone gave me well over 20 grams of protein to start my day strong. I felt a massive surge of clean, sustained energy that carried me all the way through to lunchtime. But there was another vital piece to the muscle puzzle I discovered: calcium. I used to think calcium was just meant for keeping your bones from snapping. I did not realize that every single time you flex a bicep, grip a steering wheel, or push yourself up out of a low chair, your muscle fibers require heavy amounts of calcium to contract properly. Without it, your muscles misfire and stall. I used to get these terrible, agonizing cramps in my calves late at night in bed. They would literally wake me up screaming in pain. Once I started incorporating that daily ounce of real Parmesan, which packs over 300 milligrams of pure calcium, those midnight cramps completely vanished. I felt my muscle contractions in the garage gym become sharper, harder, and much more explosive. I was not just building cosmetic size, I was building functional, raw, real-world power. I stopped buying cheap processed cheese entirely. Yes, the real Parmigiano Reggiano costs a few extra bucks at the register, but because the flavor and the nutrition are so incredibly concentrated, I only needed a tiny little bit to feel totally satisfied. I would sprinkle it heavily over a plain bowl of steamed broccoli at dinner, and suddenly, a boring plate of green vegetables tasted like a rich gourmet meal. My crushing grip strength started coming back fast. I went out to the yard, grabbed that exact same lawnmower cord, and ripped it backward with one fluid, incredibly powerful motion. The engine roared to life instantly on the very first try. I stood there alone, smelling the burnt gasoline and the freshly cut grass, feeling a massive, proud grin spread across my sweaty face. I was truly back. The third weapon I aggressively added to my daily arsenal was ricotta cheese. This was the fast-acting muscle builder that completely revolutionized my recovery game. Before this, I thought ricotta was just the bland, mushy stuff stuffed inside heavy Italian lasagna. I had absolutely no idea it was made entirely from whey, the liquid left over from making other hard cheeses. Let me tell you exactly why this matters so much. Remember how I said cottage cheese has that slow digesting casein? Well, ricotta is absolutely loaded with fast-absorbing whey protein. When I eat whey, my body rapidly breaks it down and sends those vital amino acids straight into my damaged muscle tissue within 30 to 60 minutes. It bypasses the liver completely. It is exactly like calling in a massive emergency repair crew the second a demolition job is finished. I started using ricotta very strategically. I live a very active, demanding life. I refuse to sit around watching television all day long. If I just spent 2 brutal hours out in the hot afternoon sun, chopping heavy firewood or hauling huge bags of wet mulch, my muscles were literally screaming for raw nutrients. The salt sweat would be pouring down my face, my heart pounding aggressively in my chest. I used to just drink a cold glass of water and wait around for dinner. That was a massive, critical mistake. I was starving my own body right when it needed fuel the absolute most. I changed my routine permanently. The minute I finished heavy yard work or a brutal garage workout, I would walk straight into the kitchen, open the heavy fridge door, and pull out the whole milk ricotta. I would scoop out a hearty half cup. It was incredibly smooth, creamy, and perfectly mild. I mixed a little dash of cinnamon into it and ate it right off the heavy metal spoon. Sometimes I would spread it thick over a large slice of toasted, dense, whole-grain bread. The texture was incredible, but the physical result was even better. I could actually feel my tired body absorbing the nutrients. The deep, aching soreness that usually hit me the next morning was practically gone. Ricotta is rich in branched-chain amino acids, which go straight to work repairing the microscopic, painful tears in the muscle fibers. Within 90 days of adding ricotta to my immediate post-workout routine, my physical balance improved dramatically. My legs felt deeply and permanently rooted to the solid ground, and my core felt exactly like a thick cylinder of forged iron. I also found out it was naturally much lower in dangerous sodium than most other cheeses. I always keep a very close eye on my blood pressure to protect my heart, so finding a muscle-building cheese with only about 100 milligrams of sodium per serving was a massive, unexpected victory. I was building serious, heavy muscle while actively protecting my cardiovascular system at the same exact time. I even started sneaking it into my evening meals. I would mix it directly into a heavy, dark tomato sauce, turning it rich and creamy, and then pour it over a huge bowl of steamed vegetables and sliced lean chicken. I felt completely unstoppable. But let me tell you the absolute truth. It was not just about what I was eating. It was about exactly when I ate it. This was the hardest, most stubborn lesson for me to learn. For my entire adult life, I followed the standard, lazy American way of eating. I would have a black coffee and maybe a dry, thin piece of toast for breakfast. I would eat a light, boring sandwich for lunch. Then, at 8 o'clock at night, I would sit down and totally demolish a massive steak or a huge plate of chicken. I called it the light, heavy routine. I eventually realized this was completely destroying my muscle-building potential. Think about it logically. When you sleep, your body fasts. You wake up, and your muscles are literally starving, aggressively breaking themselves down just to keep your vital organs functioning. By skipping a heavy, protein-packed breakfast, I was letting my body aggressively consume its own hard-earned muscle tissue for half the day. I completely flipped the script. I turned breakfast into my absolute most important, non-negotiable meal. I made sure that within one single hour of opening my eyes, I was sending 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein straight into my waking system. That is exactly where the cheese became my ultimate secret tool. I would sit at my kitchen island with a heavy bowl containing a half cup of cottage cheese, a handful of dark, antioxidant-rich berries, and a solid ounce of freshly grated parmesan sprinkled right on top. It sounds crazy, mixing the sweet and the sharp savory, but it tasted genuinely incredible. That specific, weird combination gave me exactly what I needed to forcefully flip the internal biological switch from muscle breakdown to rapid, aggressive muscle growth. I learned the hard way that my aging muscles could only process about 30 grams of protein at one single time. Eating a gigantic 60-gram protein dinner was totally useless. My body simply could not store the excess. It just wasted it entirely. It is exactly like trying to water a dry, dying oak tree by dumping a 50-gallon barrel of water on the roots all at once. Most of it just runs off uselessly into the dirt. But if you take that exact same water and slowly, steadily drip it onto the roots all day long, the tree absorbs every single drop and grows massive, thick, and strong. That is exactly how I treat my physical body now. I space my protein out. Cottage cheese in the morning, a heavy sprinkle of authentic parmesan over my lunchtime salad, a thick smear of fast-acting ricotta after I push heavy iron weights in the garage or finish building something heavy out in the yard. I aim for 2 to 3 specific, measured servings of these cheeses every single day. I do not worry about the calories because I am eating precise, deliberate portions. I view this daily routine exactly like taking a prescribed daily vitamin. It is non-negotiable. And let me be perfectly crystal clear about the exercise part. You do not need to be a professional, oiled-up bodybuilder to make this work. You do not need expensive, fancy gym memberships or complicated, shiny machines. I rebuilt my entire physical foundation using simple, brutal, basic resistance movements. I am talking about doing strict, heavy push-ups against the wall or the rough concrete floor until my chest burned with fire. I am talking about sitting down in a heavy wooden dining chair and standing back up, over and over again, focusing on forcefully squeezing every single muscle in my legs. I grabbed heavy plastic water jugs and pressed them over my head until my shoulders were literally screaming for mercy. I created a massive synergistic explosion inside my body when I broke down the muscle fibers with that rustic, simple, heavy resistance training, and then immediately fed those damaged fibers with the fast-acting whey protein from the ricotta or the leucine-rich cottage cheese within 2 short hours. My body responded like it was 25 years old again. The doctors call it restoring a youthful muscle-building response. I just call it violently getting my life back. There is a profound, deep pride that comes with realizing you are no longer a frail victim of your own age. I clearly remember walking into the local hardware store a few months into this new routine. I needed to load up several 80-pound bags of concrete for a new fence I was building by hand in the backyard. A young kid, maybe 20 years old, wearing an orange apron, walked up and offered to load my truck for me. He had that distinct look of pity in his eyes, the exact kind of look society gives older men when they assume we are fragile, broken, and ready for the nursing home. I looked him dead in the eye, smiled grimly, and politely told him I had it fully covered. I stepped up to the wooden pallet, squared my heavy boots solidly on the concrete floor, braced my thick core, and lifted the very first bag. My back remained perfectly safely straight. My legs drove the brutal weight up with explosive, raw power. I tossed that heavy bag into the metal bed of my truck like it was filled with light feathers. I grabbed the second one, then the third, then the fourth. My breath was totally steady. My heart beat with a slow, calm, powerful rhythm. The young kid just stood there staring at me in absolute silence, completely and totally shocked. That is the true, undeniable power of feeding your body exactly what it demands. I drove home that day with the truck windows rolled down, the cold wind hitting my face, listening to the steady hum of the engine and feeling an overwhelming, undeniable sense of absolute victory. I had successfully reverse-engineered my own physical decline. The cottage cheese, the authentic parmesan, the fast-acting ricotta, these were not just random foods to me anymore. They were my daily, powerful medicine. They were the literal building blocks of my rugged independence. I absolutely refuse to be the weak guy who needs help getting off the toilet when I turn 80. I refuse to let my hard-earned muscles simply waste away into nothing because modern society tells me it is natural to get weak. We have the hard science. We know the exact proteins, the heavy leucine, the slow casein, and the fast whey that our aging bodies are desperately screaming for. The only thing standing between you and a strong, highly functional, powerful body is your own daily, unrelenting discipline. You just have to make the hard choice to open your refrigerator and put the absolute right fuel into the machine. As I stand here today, physically stronger, harder, and vastly more capable than I was decades ago, I want you to look deep inside yourself. Muscle loss is absolutely not an inevitable, tragic part of getting older. It is merely a sad symptom of surrendering. With these 3 specific, powerful cheeses locked into your daily routine, combined with a total refusal to sit still and accept weakness, you can rebuild your physical mass well into your 70s, 80s, and far beyond. The roadmap is sitting right in front of you. But all the knowledge in the world means absolutely nothing if you do not take aggressive, immediate action today. Will you step up to the plate tomorrow morning? Will you feed your starving muscles the cottage cheese they desperately need at sunrise? Will you grate that real, authentic parmesan over your midday lunch? Will you commit to a relentless 90-day journey to see exactly how powerful your physical body can truly become? I know you have that burning fire inside you. We are not meant to fade away quietly into the dark background. We are meant to stand tall, strong, and entirely independent until our very last day on this earth. If you are ready to draw a hard line in the sand, if you are ready to completely rebuild your body and take back your ultimate strength, I want you to scroll down right now and type these exact words in the comments. I am strong. Leave that comment as a permanent contract with yourself. Thank you for walking this rugged path with me today. Now get out there, eat your cheese, go lift something heavy in your garage, and firmly reclaim the incredible life that truly belongs to you.